Running back Josh Jacobs is now with the Green Bay Packers, but his drama with the fan base of his former team, Raider Nation, just won't stop. From arguing with fans on social media to trying to recruit their best player, Davante Adams, Jacobs continues to have a toxic relationship with this fan base. Today, we're going to explore how Josh Jacobs, a player who was once beloved by Raider Nation, learned to hate them, becoming their arch nemesis. But who turned on whom? Who is to blame for this situation? Is it Josh Jacobs or the fans themselves? I'm Wi-Fi Willie. I make videos about the NFL and my favorite team, the Raiders. Make sure you subscribe. After the 2018 season, when Marshawn Lynch retired, the Raiders had to find their franchise running back, and they would use one of their 2019 first-round draft pick selections on the Alabama running back, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs would make an impact quickly during his rookie season, becoming one of the top 100 players in the NFL, ranked 72nd after only playing one season in the league. Not only was Jacobs loved by the Raiders fan base because of his production on the field, but because of his background and his story. Jacobs had a true rags to riches story, as he was homeless in middle school but still found a way to make it in the NFL. His story was publicized in Super Bowl commercials, and fans felt an emotional connection to that back as he continued to rise in his career in the NFL. Fans also learned early on that Jacobs was available to them more than your average player. He would Instagram live with fans on social media, and everything seemed happy and all good and fun. But little did Josh Jacobs know around this time that these same people that he would show love to on social media would turn on him. After John Gruden was wrongfully ousted as the Raiders head coach due to leaked emails, Josh McDaniels took over as head coach, and because he did not select Josh Jacobs in the NFL draft, Josh Jacobs' relationship with the Raiders started to take a turn for the worse. The Raiders under McDaniels turned down Josh Jacobs' fifth-year option. Jacobs was asked about it, and his response was awkward.
The fifth-year option wasn't picked up. Does that play into things for you? And was it disappointment, or where are you?
I really don't too much think about it, honestly. I had to be here either way. This is where I want to be, so.
Rather than take it easy and look forward to free agency, Jacobs grinded harder than he ever had before and became the NFL's leading rusher in 2022 and was also named to a first-team All-Pro. During this epic season as the #1 rusher in the NFL, Davante Adams and other teammates took note of Jacobs' contract situation, sending signs that the running back needs to get paid. However, just like every single running back in the NFL currently, Jacobs' payday was not coming soon. This money issue is when Raiders fans started to turn on the guy. Heading into the 2023 season, Jacobs was franchise tagged by the Raiders. However, this was against his will. He wanted a new contract, so he would hold out and miss practices. Jacobs wanted a multi-year commitment, not just a one-year deal. But this is the moment when Raiders fans would side with the Raiders and Josh McDaniels, demanding that Jacobs play on a cheap contract and essentially call him greedy. Jacobs had been making some cryptic posts on social media about his contract situation with the Raiders, and oftentimes fans would reply to these threads, and Jacobs, rather than letting it go, would give in to the temptation and respond to these fans. There are multiple instances of this, but at one point, Jacobs had to tell a fan to shut the F up as a fan wrongly claimed that Jacobs is demanding all kinds of money and that the Raiders can't afford him at the price that he's demanding. Jacobs would tell these fans that they do not know what they're talking about, and also had to deal with Raiders content creators and bloggers who push fake news about Jacobs trying to reset the running back market. One fan even told Jacobs that his position is replaceable, and Jacobs replied to him saying, "Let's see him do it then." It seems like Jacobs, who was frustrated with these fans, started making comments that would piss them off even more, like, "Hey, let's see him replace me." And the fact that Jacobs was willing to respond to fans made more fans reach out and harass him, hoping that he would give them attention as well. If you already give attention to one fan, that's just going to encourage others to try to trigger you and get a response. What did Jacobs really expect? Obviously, the fans don't know what they're talking about. They're not privy to the internal contract negotiations of the Raiders. Social media should also not represent every single fan. There were some fans who are not on social media trying to push for Josh Jacobs to get more money. Social media is always going to be toxic, and it seems like Jacobs gave in to the temptation of responding to these fans, and it was not a good look at all. But he let these toxic people on Twitter represent all fans when most people aren't glued to the X app. This tainted image of Raiders fans led to Josh Jacobs not saying goodbye to Raider Nation at all when he signed with the Green Bay Packers in 2024. The Packers offered more money than the Raiders and also gave him a longer deal. 5 years ago, he was on Instagram Live talking to fans, and there was so much love in the air. Josh Jacobs even has a Raiders tattoo because he loved the fact that the organization used a first-round pick on him in an era where a lot of running backs are not selected in the first round. But now, with the Green Bay Packers, Jacobs is actively trying to trigger Raiders fans. All Jacobs did was post that he is good where he's at, only time will tell, sit back and enjoy the show. But because these Raiders fans hate the guy so much, this wasn't enough to set them off and cause a chain reaction. Some random loser fan who spends their free time harassing athletes on social media responded to Jacobs saying, "Most salty Raiders player ever," shaking my head, and Jacobs said, "Salty how? Y'all the ones that bring the shit up every day in my shit, just move on." We're only allowed to see the public harassment that Josh Jacobs has dealt with. Who knows what private messages this guy is getting? But the big move that Jacobs did, which was not a good look, was with the goodbye. A fan wrote to Jacobs saying, "You could have left with a bit more professionalism or class. We loved having you. You're a dog. Just not sure why you took the deal to play elsewhere," and not even post a message thanking anyone. After all the bullshit that fans have said to Jacobs over the years, it seemed like the idea of thanking them just pissed him off. And that is why he responded saying, "F a fake ass goodbye. It ain't no hate to the Raiders. They made a business decision, and so did I. It's simple. Move on." Seems like Josh Jacobs dislikes Raiders fans more than he dislikes the Raiders themselves, who did not offer him as much money as the Green Bay Packers. It also probably pissed Josh Jacobs off that this fan who was complaining about not getting a proper goodbye also tried to shame Jacobs for taking the Packers deal. Why would Jacobs not take a deal with a team that has a good chance to win their division and is offering more money? We're not going to get into all of it. There were tons of replies, more people talking crap on the guy, but Jacobs made one comment in particular that was quite interesting. He said, "Y'all didn't even want me there," laugh emoji. So Jacobs, due to all the toxicity from these Raiders fan trolls on Twitter, grew to feel unwanted by the fan base overall, and unfortunately, he let these smartphone addicts represent the entire Raiders fan base. Then, during OTAs, Josh Jacobs made another comment to trigger Raiders fans about Davante Adams. When talking to a reporter of The Athletic, Josh Jacobs said that when he came out here to Green Bay, he sent Davante Adams the little look eye emoji and said, "You thinking about coming back?" And then he said that Davante Adams loved it. Jacobs is clearly making a joke here, but it seems like he's trying to trigger some more Raiders fans, making it seem like Davante Adams would love to come back to the Green Bay Packers. Recently, Davante Adams has said that if he wanted to be gone, he'd be gone by now, and on Max Crosby's podcast The Rush, he made it clear that he wants to stay with the Raiders. It's clear that Jacobs is only saying this to the media to take a shot at Raiders fans once again. The real tragedy in all of this is that it did not have to be this way. Josh Jacobs is number 3 in rushing yards of all time in franchise history for the Raiders. He would only need 3,000-yard seasons to top Marcus Allen and be the number 1 Raiders rusher in franchise history. And I truly believe that if you took a poll among all Raiders fans, they would appreciate Josh Jacobs for his services, and they probably respect the guy, hopes he has a good career, and misses him as a Raiders running back. On one level, it's Josh Jacobs' fault for interacting with trolls on social media and letting them represent the entire fan base. But on the other hand, Josh Jacobs had been interacting with fans throughout his career, and previously it was positive, and some of these fans are right to point out that the trolls do not represent the entire fan base, and a proper goodbye, even if it's fake, just shows respect to the people who supported you while you were there. But Josh Jacobs does not owe these fans anything, especially the toxic fans who, in my opinion, are making it harder for the Raiders to attract talent. What if these fans were not that toxic? What if they were not harassing Josh Jacobs for trying to get a decent contract? Then maybe Jacobs would have been more inclined to take a team-friendly deal and stay with Raider Nation. Like Jacobs mentioned earlier, he respects the Raiders, and their business decision seems like he doesn't respect a lot of these fans. It really sucks because it's a special thing that Jacobs has done throughout his career, which is actually interact with the fans. But because these trolls and a lot of these fans are so toxic, it makes it to where athletes and people like Josh Jacobs opt to not even look at the comments at all, opt to not interact with the fans at all, because all it leads to is drama, negativity, and more problems. Unlike these trolls, I appreciate what Josh Jacobs has done, and I wish him nothing but the best. I actually hope he comes back to the Raiders after playing with the Green Bay Packers and breaks Marcus Allen's rushing record, becomes the #1 Raiders running back of all time. Shout out to Josh Jacobs. Hopefully you don't have that much more toxicity. And no, Devontae Adams is not going to Green Bay. My name is Wi-Fi Willie. Peace out, and I hope you have a good one.